Welcome to the Vision CreatHER Podcast, from corporate to creator, with your hosts, Pamela Martino and Debbie Williams.
Welcome to another edition of Vision CreatHER Podcast. This is part two of our continuation from last week's episode, Diversify or Die, Investing, with Nolan Martino. And today we're going to focus in only on Bitcoin. We're going to talk about all things Bitcoin. And as I said last week, just a full disclosure, that Nolan is my son. Okay, so Nolan, we have a lot to talk about. And last week was basically just to give people an introduction of, Bitcoin as an investment tool. We also had Ryan on last week where we talked about some traditional investing tools as well. So today we're going to give the people all things Bitcoin. And, you spent many years investing time and energy in learning and building your knowledge in this space in Bitcoin. And so you have a lot to offer. And, as I said in our show notes from last week, you and Ryan are the voices of of your generation and the generations to come. And so let's take this time and let's just, acquaint the people, for people who may have missed last week's episode. They can go back and watch it. What is Bitcoin? And, I've often heard you refer to it as fiat money. So problems with fiat money. So let's give an introduction again of, just a quick overview of Bitcoin and fiat money, problems with fiat money, and explain what that is to the people. Debbie, would you like to?
Yeah, no, you were cooking, Pamela. I was just gonna let you cook. But no, we just I'm gonna take it more from a practical standpoint because there are some, especially your generation, Nola, they're a lot more familiar with Bitcoin than our generation. So just understanding the practicality of it. Like my daughter, she just got her first job. And so I said, honey, you're gonna have to get some Bitcoin. She's like, okay, mom, do I get it from SoFi? So you get questions like that. So I'm gonna come from a practical standpoint, but absolutely you can give us the Bitcoin one-on-one. You can just, take us from there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and I'm super excited to be back on the show. So thank you for having me. So there's a lot to unpack in that question. We can start with fiat because I always say if you don't understand the problem, you won't be able to appreciate the solution. So fiat money or fiat currency is money or currency backed. It's not backed by anything, right? So I can take you down a quick history lesson. The dollar used to be backed by gold, right? So that was from, say, the 1913s to like the 1971. And in 1971, we severed our connection from gold, the dollar from gold, because basically the dollar was always redeemable for gold. So the banks would have all the gold at the bank, and then your fiat currency, the paper, was a representation of the gold at the bank. So you could go to the bank, say, "Hey, here's my $20 bill. I would like whatever amount of ounce that equates to that, amount of gold." So you could always redeem your dollar bill for gold. But that got severed in 1971. So now the dollar and all fiat currencies, the euro, the pound, the yen, aren't backed by anything. It's just paper that's decreed by the government. And actually, fiat in Latin is translated to let it be done.
Mhm.
So it's just snap of a finger, money's printed, money's created, and that is I think believe the premise of kind of the problem that we face today, which is inflation, right? Because if there's no cap supply or no constraint to how much money you can create, well, then the more money you create, the more inflation you also by proxy create. So once you kind of understand that, and that was a very short, short, brief history, there's so much more to it. You then start to look for, okay, well, where can I put my time and energy at so that I'm not getting inflated away or that I'm not feeling the brunt of inflation? And then we get to the conversation of gold again, and then we get to Bitcoin. And what Bitcoin is a fixed supply money. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. That's where all the value proposition is. And it's just an open, borderless, permissionless network where you can opt into it. And, for me, saving Bitcoin, and it's just an open monetary network. And there's so much I can go into it from there, but that's kind of just the premise of it. It's an open, borderless, permissionless monetary network. It has 21 million Bitcoin. No one will be able to create more of it, and it's a fixed supply asset. And historically, all fixed supply assets go up over time because if it's priced in the currency that's only going down over time, it protects your purchasing power. I know that
So
was
if
a
it's
lot.
a so if it's a fixed supply asset, then how do you keep it safe, right? So because you have all these, from my understanding, you have all these independent computers connected.
Hmm.
that send the information back and forth. And you just saw the big hack that was done for this major company, Stryker. They were completely hacked. All their information was wiped out, right? A big company, so I'm sure their security systems are top notch. How do you prevent hacking of Bitcoin or the whole coin space, the digital currency space?
Yeah, I haven't heard about the Striker one. I'm going to look that one up. But kind of to your point, like you said, Bitcoin is run part of it. So there are multiple things, components in the Bitcoin network. And one of them are called nodes. And you can run, anybody can spin up a node, which is basically just a transaction history of the blockchain. And you can kind of verify your own transactions that way. So that's that kind of component. But to basically to keep your Bitcoin safe, personally, I would like to, put my Bitcoin in self-custody and cold storage. And when you do that, you own the Bitcoin in your self-custody with your own private keys. And the private key is basically like a secret. It's like a 24 word, 12 to 24 words. And you memorize those words, or you can write them down. And if you keep those 12 to 24 words, no one can hack your Bitcoin, no one can steal your Bitcoin, no one can confiscate it as long as you have those 24 words safe in a secure location. So that's how you keep your Bitcoin safe on a personal level. And then on the Bitcoin network side of things, Bitcoin has never been hacked. Its uptime has been 99.9% since 2009, and the network itself has not been compromised. So companies within the Bitcoin ecosystem can maybe get compromised or hacked, but the Bitcoin network itself can't be or hasn't been hacked. And that's why, again, it's so important not to trust, third parties or custodians with your Bitcoin, and instead be a self-sovereign individual and take it into self-custody if you can.
Nolan, I mentioned to you yesterday about this article I was reading that the FDIC will no longer be securing the money in the
Mhm.
bank. If anyone, if someone, or if no one understands what that means, the FDIC secures up to $250,000 of your money in the banking system. So if something happens, you'll at least get $250,000 back if you have that amount of money in the bank. So from a Bitcoin perspective, I don't think it falls under FDIC. Is anything like that necessary to secure the money? Help people understand because, just like Debbie's explained, things are just being hacked all the time, right? And
Yeah.
so, people's money is how they secure their livelihood. So, what ways outside of based on what you said, is the FDIC involved in Bitcoin at all?
No, that's completely traditional finance, traditional banking. Yeah, no, Bitcoin has nothing to do with FDIC. And yeah, Bitcoin is by saving or just buying Bitcoin, you become your own bank, right? So you don't need any other third party to basically protect your funds. So that is what, some people say like a con is like you're fully responsible for your Bitcoin, right? So if you lose it, if you lose the private key, the seed phrase that we just talked about, well, then there goes your Bitcoin, and there's no helpline or customer service number you can call. So that's the trade-off, but that's also what responsibility and self-sovereignty looks like. You are your own bank, and you don't have to trust anybody to access your own money. You can access your money at any time. So yeah, no FDIC. Yeah, that's the trade-off. That's the
Well,
trade-off.
funny thing, you said I forgot about and I don't, and we don't necessarily have to say the person's name, but it was just like a year ago that someone could not remember their C phrase, and this person had millions of dollars in Bitcoin, and I think they were on like their last try because you only get so many tries or something. Is
Mhm.
that right? And then you lose, you lose it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's again why it's just so important to you got to be able to protect that seed phrase because if you lose it, you lose your Bitcoin. So yeah, the seed phrase is everything. And I don't want to scare people with it. Like there's multiple ways you can kind of get around it. There's something called multi-sig and we can get into that and there's another signing device where you don't need a seed phrase. So there's ways around it, but yeah, the seed phrase is very important.
So what about I learned that you can also make money off your Bitcoin, just sort of like the stock market when you could do options and things of that nature. I heard something about proof of stake, something like that, where you can kind of like earn interest on your money. You can post your Bitcoin and then they can use it and give you some interest payments on it. Have you ever ventured into that side of the Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's really so Bitcoin is based off proof of work. And then all the other altcoins like Ethereum, some of the other ones are proof of stake. And more on the proof of stake network, you can do that with like Ethereum. You can stake your Bitcoin, or yeah, you can stake your Ethereum and then get yield on your Ethereum. There's not really, there are, but it's not really popular within the Bitcoin space of trying to like stake your Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the world and it's compounding at 40 to 50% a year. And it's just inviting counterparty risk and just unnecessary risk, staking your Bitcoin with a third party. So that's again, yeah, that's more of an Ethereum proof of stake altcoin kind of path. You rarely ever come across a Bitcoiner saying, "Yeah, I'm, staking my Bitcoin for 4% yield." Like that's just,
Okay. So
yes,
what about Bitcoin is down right now? I think it's down around 80,000, I think it is. 80, is it 80?
it's at 69,000 right now, probably down around 40-ish% from its all-time highs in October.
Right. And the last low, because it broke, I think it broke a floor and is heading to the next floor. I think the next floor is 60,000, if I'm not mistaken. So how low do you think it's going to go before it turns back around?
It's so tough to say, just because it's so uncertain right now in the world. Like this whole Iran situation going on and a war. Anything can happen, right? So if the war escalates and things get really bad, not just Bitcoin, but everything is going down
Mhm.
first before we see a correction. I kind of like to think we're near a bottom or the bottom's already in. We touched 60K, I think, early February, and then we've popped right back up and we're at 69 right now. Um, but again, anything's possible. I'm very, very bullish long term, but in the next, 1 to 3 months, anything can happen. And I just like to have some cash on the side ready just in case we have a discount. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So when are you, so I did see the dollar cost averaging DCA
Hmm.
on Bitcoin and taking purchasing it at a regular frequency. Do you suggest that Bitcoin be a long-term play versus a short-term play? Like really, this is the new 401k in a sense, or the new retirement versus traditional 401ks and things of that nature because there's a lot it's a lot volatile, right? But
Right.
to your point, otherwise, it has new lows and new highs. So it's volatile, but it's heading in a certain direction of volatility. So would you say this is the new retirement, new path to retirement, or not really?
Yeah, absolutely think it is, especially for our generation, Gen Z, millennials, and even, Gen X and boomers to a degree. I think Bitcoin is perfect money or near perfect money, and it's the best form of money we've ever seen. So if you're able to just save in money and saving the money for the long term and saving, which is the best performing asset over time, you're gonna absolutely come out on top over a 3, 5, 10 year period. And to your point, I mean, yes, it's volatile in the short term, but it's volatile to the upside over the long term. So there's a chart that shows that if anyone has saved in Bitcoin for the last 3 to 4 years or for any 3 to 4 year period, it's almost like 0% that you lose money, right? So the game is being in it and being in it for the long term and continually buying over time. And that's how you win. So that's how I treat it. Bitcoin is money for me. Bitcoin is a long-term savings account. And I just know that a scarce asset is going to grow in purchasing power over the long term, priced in a fiat currency. So I just play the long game.
And so it seems like you're saying at least a 4 year investment. So it's just like when you buy a bond or something, right? You get locked in for that term.
Mhm.
So would you suggest the minimum so this is for somebody who's looking to invest at least 4 years minimum?
Minimum, because that 4 year number comes from historically Bitcoin operates on a 4 year cycle because it has a halving cycle. And we can get into that as well. But at least a minimum of 4 years. But ideally, you want to hold on to something like Bitcoin for a decade, ideally for like a lifetime, right? I've heard someone reference Bitcoin as an intra-generational savings account, and I love that idea because that's how I kind of plan to use it. I'm 25. I have hopefully, a long roadway ahead of me. And when my time is done, I hope to just pass on my Bitcoin to my kids. And then they're going to take the baton and do the same thing with their kids. And it's just going to be a massive intergenerational wealth asset, and we'll be able to borrow against it. We'll be able to have different products and services that are coming down the line that we'll be able to leverage, and we just continue to let the Bitcoin compound and grow. And that's exactly what I plan to do, and I think Bitcoin's a perfect asset for it.
Do you ever take money off the table? Because
No.
even in the stock market, even Warren Buffett,
Mhm.
he did a big cash out. I think it was last year. He took a lot of money off out of the market. He cashed out and sat on they call it gunpowder, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So so you're saying with Bitcoin, there's no need to take money off the table. Just you can borrow against it. You can do other things against it without actually touching the asset. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. I don't believe you sell the winner, right? I think again, Bitcoin's the best asset, so you don't sell the winner. And there's another reason, I'll have to pull up this article. I can link it to you guys. There's an article that says sell Bitcoin for what? So once you kind of compare Bitcoin to all other asset classes, say Bitcoin, tomorrow hits 200K, we're at a new all-time high, and people are like, hey, you should take some money off the table. Okay, take some money off the table and then put it into what? So you profit. If you're not going to use the money for like, some expense or something that you are a travel, a vacation or whatever, why would you sell the winner and what are you going to do with it? You're going to rotate it into stocks, you're going to rotate it into bonds, you're going to rotate it into real estate. If you comparing Bitcoin to all those different asset classes, Bitcoin is a superior asset. So why would you sell the superior asset into an inferior asset? You just hold the superior asset. Um, so I don't ever see anytime soon selling Bitcoin because while I definitely don't want to sell it for dollars, right? Like I don't want to be holding dollars again. So I just hold Bitcoin and just continue to add to my position.
Okay, Pamela, I got more questions, but I'll let
Yeah,
you.
no, that's really good. And so, I mean, because I hear all this all the time, right? Because when Nolan is around us, we talk about money, savings, Bitcoin, all the things, and just how to get more of it. Because I think you alluded to earlier that, you can buy fractional
Yep.
Bitcoin. So if somebody wants to, and we talked about this last week, but if somebody wants to open up a Bitcoin account, I know there's a number of platforms where they can do that and they can link their banking account. So it's essentially like investing into the stock market. So you can link your banking account. You can do the dollar cost averaging. You can buy some every day, once a week or however, there's options to do that. But maybe you can just share how easy it is to get it all set up. Nolan's done that for us in our family, and so we're set up. So Nolan, it was really simple and easy. So explain how that's done.
Yeah, it's super simple. I mean, at this point now in 2026, there's so many platforms where you can buy Bitcoin from. You can buy it in Cash App. Everybody has a Cash App account. You can buy it in Venmo. I personally use Strike and River. They're a Bitcoin only exchange and they have a lot of cool products and services that they're rolling out. Where else? Coinbase. I don't necessarily recommend them, but you can buy it off Coinbase. Robinhood. Fidelity now offers Bitcoin and a lot of traditional finance, massive houses are selling Bitcoin and pr producing Bitcoin services. So you can find it anywhere. And to your point about it being divisible, I actually have a chart for you guys that I can share my screen real quick with. People always look at Bitcoin like even now at 69K or when it was at its all-time high at 126, like 126,000. Oh, I can never afford one Bitcoin. Like it's way out of reach and I've missed it all and the boat's behind me. Well, good news for them is that you don't need to buy one Bitcoin. You can buy fractions of a Bitcoin. So one Bitcoin equates to what we call 100 million Satoshis. So you can buy a small amount of Satoshis and over time that will accumulate to one Bitcoin, if that makes sense. So Bitcoin is divisible by 8 decimal points. And there's another graph here, right, similar to this. It's divisible by 8 decimal points. So over time, as you just stack more Satoshis, you will get to eventually one Bitcoin if that's your goal. So like right now, let me show you something here. Let's say I wanted to buy $5 worth of Bitcoin. That right now is 7,158 Satoshis. So if I were to just buy that over time, I'm just stacking Satoshis, and that again, it gets you to one Bitcoin over time if that's your goal. So you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can start with $5 a day, $10, whatever you can do, and you just need to continue to do that over time consistently, and you'll be in a much better position in 5 years than you are today if you continue to kind of stick with that plan and just stay consistent buying.
So it doesn't kind of compound like when a traditional investment, right? So, um, when you get your shares go up a certain amount, and then you kind of have like some extra money or some dividends or whatever that gets reinvested back into the portfolio. But it sounds like with Bitcoin, it's just you buy it and you just go with the flow in a sense. It's Is that
Yeah.
makes
'Cause
sense?
Bitcoin isn't a yielding or a cash yielding asset. So you just kind of, like you said, go with the flow depending on the day and where the price is at. You just buy more of it and your position size accumulates as you just buy more. Right. So I've bought at all different price points from 50 to 60 to 126 at its all-time high when it was coming back down in the 80s and 90s. The price really doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to stack sats or satoshis. And over time, if Bitcoin continues to go back higher again, you have more satoshis, more sats, and you're just compounding at a higher rate because you've been buying at all these different levels, and you're just kind of riding it out.
So how do you live off that in terms of practicality, right? If you never sell it,
Hmm.
how do you, I mean, because if you're just stacking the money away and let it ride with the price points of Bitcoin, how do you live off of that? Because from again, practicality standpoint, if someone is all in Bitcoin, how do they survive and thrive, right?
Yeah.
How do you live? I mean, because we live in a world where we are in America where we transfer dollars for, even though, like you said, there are some places that are accepting Bitcoin. Well,
Hmm.
even what does that even mean, right? Accepting Bitcoin. Are they going to take one Satoshi? They're going to take, like, what does that mean, right? From a
Yeah.
practicality standpoint.
I can answer that last point first, and I get to the first part. So like, say like Steak and Shake. They accept Bitcoin. And again, if you're looking at it as Bitcoin as money, it makes perfect sense, right? You're just accepting a different form of money. And so say I want a milkshake and the milkshake is $4, well, you can just convert the $4 to how much Satoshis that is, and then that's kind of your conversion right there. So whatever that amount is, 6,000 something Satoshis right now. And that would be the number you scan, or the QR code you scan, and that would be, how much you pay for it. And to your first point of living on a Bitcoin standard, there's different degrees to how people do it. I know somebody who lives completely on a Bitcoin standard. They don't have any dollars anymore. They don't have any kind of fiat, and it's only Bitcoin. I'm not all the way there yet. I'm close, but I'm not all the way there. So again, for me, Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is a long-term savings account. That's kind of how I treat it. So I try not to touch the Bitcoin under well, I try not to touch the majority of my Bitcoin under any circumstance, and then I'll have a little chunk of it as like almost like a checkings account that I'll use for if I go to Steak and Shake or if I go to another merchant that accepts Bitcoin, I'm more than happy to use Bitcoin as money to kind of help the ecosystem. But that's kind of how I do it. I have a checkings account, a savings account, and then personally for me, since I don't want to hold a lot of dollars or I try to hold as little dollars as possible, I primarily live on credit. So I live on my credit card and then, which of course I still use responsibly. And then I use my income to pay off the credit card every month and kind of just reset the cycle. And then of course, any kind of extra income that I have, I save in Bitcoin. So that's kind of how I live on a Bitcoin standard. I know a few others do. And again, there's just varying degrees to how people do it. But that's kind of how I operate. Because again, like we can go into this as well, but I mean, when you kind of understand how the fiat monetary system works and the banking system works, you kind of want to figure out how to like devolve yourself of that and get away from it. And that's kind of the process I'm in. Like, I don't want to be a part of the fiat system as much as I can, and I want to be in this new, better system, fairer system, which is Bitcoin. And so yeah, I try not to have a lot of fiat in
Okay,
in my bank account.
so in other words, you're not walking around with wads of cash like some people. Like,
Never.
if you're finding an old guy with a, well, not even an old guy, an older guy with a bunch of $100 bills in his wallet.
Yeah,
So
A
no.
you're
money
saying,
clip. You get a
yeah,
money
the
clip.
money clip with a
Yeah.
hundred, the $100. It says they go to the
You,
store, they pay their, they got their hundred, their band, they got their
yeah,
points, right?
you'll never catch me doing that ever.
So I guess when they go to these establishments, these gentlemen establishment, I guess you can't throw the bands. You got to throw bitcoins at that point. Is that like how's this transition going to work in an environment where, the dollar has so much power, even the $100 bill, and
Mhm.
I think Trump's coming out with his own bill or something. But how's that going to work in a world where just the American dollar itself, the physical? Do you have a dollar as a souvenir posted somewhere that like this will be the last dollar you own? Like, what's the deal with
No, I mean, with just the tools we have now, like you said, to like credit cards and stuff that we can use, or obviously Apple Pay and things like that, you can kind of leverage. And I just think also, I mean, more merchants are now accepting Bitcoin as payment, right? Square just announced a few days ago that they're now allowing 4 million of their merchants who use the Square POS terminal to literally just turn on the future and they can start accepting Bitcoin. So that's a massive adoption that we're seeing just by, merchants being able to use their Square terminal to, turn on the button and they can accept Bitcoin. So I think we're starting to see the progress or the process of, merchants and companies and institutions accepting Bitcoin as money. But it's just going to take some more time. But yeah, that transition is happening. And as more and more people understand Bitcoin and begin to kind of just like, yeah, understand it and get the knowledge, they're going to be one, no one's not going to want to accept a better form of money, right? So it's just a matter of time. And as that knowledge distributes, we'll start to see more and more adoption, I believe. So yeah, it's just it's happening kind of slower than some of us would like, but it's happening.
And
So
I
just a
think,
clarifying question. When you say so the stat is worth one thing today, but it could be worth something different tomorrow. So when you're going to Shake Shack to pay for your burger, let's say,
Mhm.
um, it may be one stat today, but it could be two stats tomorrow and vice versa.
Yeah, it just depends on Bitcoin's price. So it
Okay.
fluctuates. But again, if the dollar the burger is $4, that's not going to change, but it's just going to be the set amount that's going to change,
Yeah.
right? Depending on Bitcoin's price that day.
Okay. Sorry, Pamela, go ahead.
no, that's fine. I was just going to say, as for now, because Bitcoin, the conversation of crypto or digital assets is in the mainstream. So for anyone who's in tune at all to any level of news, they're hearing it. So they may not be 100% acquainted with it or how it works, but they know something is coming because it's been very clearly communicated that this digital asset system is penetrating, the currency. I don't know. I mean, no, I know you don't consider dollars currency or what have you, but
Uh,
but
the
it's
dollar is a currency.
say
Yeah,
that again.
actually, no,
Oh,
sorry, just I didn't mean to interrupt you, but no, the dollar is currency, not
okay.
money. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. There you
Yeah,
go.
you're right. You got it.
But the conversation is in the mainstream. And so for those who don't fully understand it, I think they'll have that transition time. So you'll have dual currency,
Yeah.
Bitcoin and dollars.
Yes.
So I think the thing is, part of what we want to communicate is that for people to get ready. This is coming. It's here. Not even it's coming. It's here. And of course, early adoption in anything. You find out an IPO, you get that, and then you enjoy the ride. So the same thing with Bitcoin. You get in now, and Bitcoin right now is at one of the lower points from where it's been. So get in now, and you just enjoy the ride. And I think as merchants and different, I mean, because everyone knows it's here, and so they have to start making that transition because the Gen Zs, and I forget the generation that's coming after you, Nolan. I can't remember the name of that
I
gen.
think it's alpha. Is it alpha?
Right.
I think it's alpha,
Yeah,
yeah.
they may come to your marketplace and be like, "Well, I don't want to use dollar. I don't have any dollar. I want to use Bitcoin. Where's your point of sale system?" You might
Mhm.
actually lose a customer. You may lose several customers in that generation, like if you don't meet their financial needs in that way, because these generations, when they mean what they say and they say what they mean.
Yeah.
And if they get a hold of something that they're passionate about, they can't, they put a stake in the ground and they move in that direction. So I think sooner rather than later, we're going to start seeing these merchants have, and what I've seen, Nolan, the times I've been with you, that the point of sale systems are separate. There's not within the cash register, right? I
Yes.
think it's there's
Yeah.
there's separate terminals. So I don't know, Debbie. Next time you go to somewhere, ask them, "Do you accept Bitcoin?" And see
Yeah,
what they say.
I think I've seen it at a coffee shop or somewhere, just
Okay.
which was strange. But
Mm.
also too, I heard that if you had invested in Bitcoin $100 in Bitcoin in 2009, it would be worth like 2 million or two million
Something
dollars.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something insane.
We
A
missed it,
hundred
Debbie.
dollars in 2009, $100 investment in 2009 would have been worth $2 million, and I
Mhm.
thought that was insane.
Yeah, I mean, you can always have like what if scenarios, but of course, Bitcoin in 2009 was, I mean, actually, Bitcoin came out in 2009, so it was still
Mhm.
extremely niche. Like, it
Yeah.
was only a small group of cypherpunks and nerds that kind of like understood it. There was really no monetary value to it yet. It was just like a little internet collectible, and it's kind of morphed over time into this, like digital money that can really, change the world and really be something. But that was not the case in 2009, and there was a lot more risk also in 2009 to it than it is now. So yeah, that sounds all good and dandy, but it just wasn't probable then.
Well, it shows the valuation, right? So I
Yeah.
guess the the messaging is that something that started off as a simple $100 investment, the magnitude to a $2 million worth, right? So
Yeah.
so the magnitude is in 2009, you're talking like 16 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Not
17
that
years
long
ago.
ago, right? So versus if you've been on your job for 20 years and you've been invested in your 401k plan and you've been invested consistently and your returns are nowhere near the mag. So just the magnitude, just looking at it from a qualitative standpoint in terms of the mag is outpacing traditional investment vehicles. So
Yeah.
like what side of the equation are you going to be on? You can still hold your traditional as your way of living and then
Mhm.
the savings to your point, Nolan.
Yeah. See, so Bitcoin is actually right now currently at a $1.395 trillion market cap. It's the fastest asset in history to get to a $1 trillion market cap. And when it was at 100,000, it was actually at a $2 trillion market cap. So it's a little bit down. But this website here shows you the top assets by market cap. So as you can see, gold is the number one most valuable asset in the world at a $32 trillion market cap. And this is where we can talk about kind of like where I see Bitcoin going. And again, Bitcoin was like I think top 10 just a few months ago when it was higher. Of course, things have moved around with prices and things like that. But currently it sits at the 12th most valuable asset in the world. And if we think Bitcoin is better money than gold, which I believe it is, then Bitcoin is, and every digital, every digital innovation that has came or that has came afterward from like an analog version has always become more valuable than the analog version, right?
Hmm.
You know, Netflix is more valuable than Blockbuster. Apple Music is more valuable than Radio Shack. Like everything, everything
Napster.
digital is more valuable normally than the analog version of it. So this is kind of where we're headed. Bitcoin is only at a $1 trillion market cap, and again, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. You're gonna have countries fighting for it, institutions fighting for it, people fighting for it. Again, it's the scarcest monetary asset in the world. So Bitcoin is going much, much higher from here. And it's just, a matter of time until we eventually, meet gold and then eventually surpass it. That's not going to obviously happen in the next year or 2 years. It's probably going to be a 10 to 30-year time period, but that's kind of my outlook on it. I mean, think about it. Some individual stocks are more valuable right now than Bitcoin, which is just crazy. So we're
Yeah.
still super early, and when people talk about, they think they missed a boat, I'm like, you have no idea. Like
Yeah.
we are still extremely early to this ride.
And also too, just in this past 16 years of investment, I mean, that would have done tremendously for those who've been employed. Even if
Hmm.
you take the past 8 years, right? Say, for instance, the first 8 year was a wash, right?
Yeah,
So even those who've been employed, just starting out in their careers and start investing, they've been working for 8 years and that's all they invested in, right?
yeah,
Compared to, because a lot of companies are not even offering benefits now. They're not even offering retirement or pension or all the other things. So this is how the new generation can kind of leapfrog the old generation
yeah.
and have a vehicle to invest in and then you don't have to deal with all the if you pre-retirement if you take it out early and all the
All the
nonsense,
fees,
all
no.
the conditions and constraints and then also you can buy a house with I saw somewhere where if you can use it as a down payment you can use it you don't have to you can use it as a asset to offset other assets and things like that. Could you explain that part, Noah?
Yeah, so Fannie Mae last week, which is talk of the town in Bitcoin Twitter, they just announced that they are now allowing Bitcoin and crypto as down payments for a home. So, again, people always talk about like, oh, I can't, go to the pizza shop and use my Bitcoin to buy pizza. Well, you can now buy a house with it. So, yeah, basically, you can use the Bitcoin as a down payment, say like 20% in my scenario, like, the majority of my wealth is in Bitcoin. If I wanted to go buy a home, I could then use my Bitcoin as a down payment, still take on a traditional FHA loan, say the 80% of the loan, and then kind of be good to go. But I use my Bitcoin as collateral to secure the home, which is just awesome. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these products roll out.
But if you default, they're gonna so they have a lien on your Bitcoin. Is that what they do?
No, so the Bitcoin is over collateralized. So say if my down payment was 20,000 or let's say yeah, $20,000, I had to collateralize a loan at $40,000 to like up
Oh,
my I have to over collateralize a loan. So any event, something were to happen, the Bitcoin would go down sharply or I just stop paying the mortgage or whatever, they would probably just take the Bitcoin, right? 'Cause as
okay.
do it
Gotcha.
that way. But yeah, it's you have an over collateralized loan.
So you give them a little bit some of your keys or something like that. You get like how did you portion out that part that's collateralized to the government?
Yeah, I'm sure I haven't looked into the intricacies of it, but I'm sure you would probably have to send it to like either some kind of multi-sig wallet where I hold a
Gotcha.
key and they hold a key, or you would just have to send them whatever amount to their wallet and it would kind of sit in like into this pool. Um, and that would kind of how it would go. But I'm not sure on
Okay.
the mechanics of it.
Okay. I'll
I
take
had a
that.
client who this was probably in 2015. He wanted to use his Bitcoin as a down payment. And the bank, they didn't understand it. And he had the money. He showed them his statement. And I mean, they went back and forth for a long time. And finally, I think the lender must have gotten permission for them to use it. And he was able to secure his down payment using his Bitcoin.
Oh
And
wow.
so Nolan, you probably they were around 12, 13, something like that. And so Nolan was already into the Bitcoin. And so, I got the two of them connected. And so this guy, he must have gotten in at like 2009 when it first, and I never seen his Bitcoin statement, but apparently he was already like
Loaded.
wealthy. Yes,
Yeah.
loaded.
Okay.
So yeah. So anyway, it's real deal. It's not a hoax. I mean, people are out here buying, houses and transacting business using Bitcoin. So it's a real deal. And so people need to be open-minded and open their minds up because they're going to get left behind. And so they don't want to, have the famous statement, oh, if I wish I would have, I wish I, could have, or would should have, do it now. And then that way you can ride the train as it's moving forward and get your Bitcoin, your coins, Debbie, get our coins, get our bag and ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nolan, thank you again. Any
Yes, thank you,
parting
Nolan.
words, anything in closing do you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can go on and on. This could be a 3 hour conversation. I can talk about, Bitcoin and the fiat monetary system all the time. My parting words would be just you have to own assets as a people, right? Like, I think we live in an inflationary environment moving forward, and if you don't own assets, you are going to suffer, unfortunately. You know, the dollar is going to continue to get debased, and I can share something real quick about that. And yeah, the only way to offset that is by owning the proper assets. So if you don't like Bitcoin, that could be gold for you. But I believe Bitcoin is going to be the best performing asset in that environment as they bring rates down over the next coming years, and they're going to have to print a lot of money. And Bitcoin is going to be the best performing asset in that environment as it's the scarcest asset and it's the most sensitive asset to liquidity. Um, so yeah, you just have to own assets and try to short the currency as much as you can. So I can share something real quick because we didn't get to this point here. So yeah, this is a diagram of the U.S. debt currently, and this is in real time. So we just crossed 39 trillion, I believe,
Wow.
2 weeks ago. And I actually refer to the fiat monetary system as like a debt-based Ponzi scheme because the dollar is debt, right? People don't actually think about that. Like, how does the currency come into existence? The dollar and all fiat currencies are literally loaned into existence, which is just so crazy to think about, right? So again, when the banks issue out a loan, that's how they create currency. And with every dollar issued, when every dollar is created, there's interest attached to the dollar. But
Mm-hmm.
the interest that's created or the interest that's attached to the dollar, the money that there's no, how do I want to say it? There is no money to pay the interest basically, right? So you create a dollar with interest, but there is no money to pay the interest. So basically you have to find somebody else to take on the debt, right? So it's a
Mm-hmm.
Ponzi scheme because somebody always has to continually take on the debt, and the debt is basically pushed onto the people. So $39 trillion in debt, and this is only going up. Again, if the dollar is debt, you can't pay off the debt because if you were to pay down the debt, um, all dollars would cease to exist. And then you have 995 let's see, that's no bill a million. No, sorry, billion.
Billion, billion.
995 interest on the debt. So this is only going to get worse, unfortunately. And again, as the people, we bear the brunt of this by dollar debasement. So in history, we talked about early in the conversation, kind of like the history of money briefly, but this goes back all the way to the Roman Empire of currencies or money getting debased, right? People talk about the Roman Empire failing, but what they fail to talk about is that the reason why it failed is because of currency clipping or coin clipping and just debasement, right? When the government doesn't have money to pay or do the things it wants to do, it just debases the money, and that debases everything else. That just debases everything else in our lives, right? So I can go on and on, but this is really not good. And I wanted to highlight this point here that since 1913, when the Federal Reserve, our central bank in the US, took over and has become the issue of the currency, the dollar has lost 96% of its value since 1913. And again, that's only gonna go down. Like that's never gonna go up. The dollar and all fiat currencies, every single fiat currency in history has gone to zero without exception, like every single one. And I don't know why people think that's not going to happen here with the dollar or any other currency. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but all currencies are destined to go to zero. So again, this is why it's so important for people to own assets, own, in my opinion, money, right? When there's only really two, maybe three. Some people consider silver, but I believe it's gold and Bitcoin as money. And you need to own real hard assets, especially in this time we're headed into. So yeah, again, I could go on and on, but
Mhm.
all in all, you need to own assets and you need to protect yourself from dollar debasement, and that's the only way out. Like that is the only way out, and especially the world we're headed into with AI, potential CBDCs coming down the line, you need an asset that can give you sovereignty and be able to give you, if you need to leave the country, you can take $1 billion of Bitcoin, put it in your head, and go over to, Europe or wherever and have all your wealth with you intact. You can't do that with real estate. It's quite hard to do with stocks. It's hard to do with gold because you can't take a bunch of gold through TSA. So Bitcoin is the only asset that's gonna, get you there. And yeah, that's kind of it. I know that was a lot as a recap, but yeah, yeah,
Good
just own
information.
assets.
It's
Own
good
assets.
information, and it's a lot. It is not a subject that can be encapsulated in one conversation in, 45 minutes. It's definitely a multi-tiered conversation that takes place over time. And so I know you're in is it X now? You're a part of several, what are those groups called that you're in? Uh,
Just spaces,
Spaces.
Twitter spaces.
Twitter
Yeah,
spaces where people come in and they ask questions or they try to, you know, speak against Bitcoin. So anyway, so people out there they can find Nolan on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, Nolan?
Instagram and Twitter, Nolan Martino.
Okay. So, but thank you again,
Yeah,
Yes,
and
thank you,
it's
Mr.
so
of
Nolan.
course,
enlightening, and
Yeah.
always open to hearing how financially we can advance and be better financially. I don't think anyone's closed-minded to that. So.
absolutely.
Yes,
And
thank
yeah,
you.
and if anyone wants to reach out, please reach out, give me a DM. I'm more than happy to talk. Send you some other resources. I have a plethora of resources I can send you. So please reach out, feel free, and thank you guys again for having me, and look forward to
And
hopefully coming on again.
yeah, Nolan, and your consulting business is Asset Addict
Yep, Asset Addict
Consulting.
Consulting. Yep, focusing on Bitcoin consulting services, kind of Bitcoin 101, educating you on Bitcoin, what it is, the problems with the fiat monetary system, how to buy it, how to safely custody it, and if you're a business, how to receive payments in Bitcoin, and just kind of, yeah, walk you from an A to Z roadmap on kind of how to get you started.
Okay, great. And I'll ensure that we'll have that in the show notes as well. And so that way people can get in contact with you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And
Yes,
for
thank you,
listeners for
Nolan.
joining us, Nolan, and sharing your knowledge. And so, Debbie, any parting words before we close
Don't
out?
forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you. And everyone out there, have a great rest of your day and we'll talk soon. Thanks.